Hey everyone, welcome back to WorkTech. It's me, George LaRocque, and we've got some industry news today. Qualifi recently announced a seed round of 4.5 million. Qualifi is an on-demand phone interviewing solution, and Darrian Mikell, Qualifi's co-founder and CEO, and Keenan Jaenicke, Qualifi's co-founder and VP of product, are both here to talk about the deal and tell us more about Qualifi. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks, George, for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. And let's start with introductions. If you could each tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then for anyone that isn't aware, tell us about a little bit about Qualifi before we dig in even further.
Cool. Keenan, you want to go first, and
Sure.
I'll introduce Qualifi with mine.
Yeah. So Keenan Jaenicke, our VP of product and one of the four co-founders here. So half of the crew. But I was one of the two technical co-founders here at Qualifi. So myself and Deshaun Prentice, we actually built the first version of Qualifi ourselves, and then we've been able to grow the team and kind of transition that to our great development team that we have. Based in Indianapolis, born and raised in Indiana, and I'm excited to be here talking with you this morning, and kick it over to Darrian.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks, Keenan. I'm Darrian Mikell, like Keenan said, one of the co-founders and also the CEO. The other co-founder that wasn't mentioned happens to be my brother. His name's Devin. He just got back from paternity leave. He's our COO. And the four of us started the company, officially incorporated in 2019, and Qualifi is the leading phone screening platform. So for teams that hire hundreds to thousands of hourly employees, our solution provides asynchronous phone interviews, screening, and scheduling, so that these recruiting teams can identify the best candidates faster and get them through the process and on to the next steps as quickly as possible. So thanks again for having us, and excited to dig in.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here. So let's talk about Qualifi a little bit before we get into the deal. So you mentioned you're a phone screening platform for high volume. So where do you fit into the process, or what we all like to call the funnel, and then where do you fit into the tech stack? So two sides of the same question there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we usually are at pretty close to the top of the funnel. So we're often replacing the traditional phone interview, and that's usually one of the first touch points after a candidate applies. So usually the candidate gets invited to take a phone interview through Qualifi shortly after they've filled out an application or submitted a resume. Either invites go out automatically, and this kind of gets into like the tech stack. We usually are integrating into the ATS, or we sometimes sit as a standalone, but we love to integrate and provide that workflow automation. So as soon as a candidate applies, or maybe there's a trigger set up after the recruiter is able to visually review the application, the invitation goes out to the candidate via text or email.
Okay. So text or email. So they can do it over their phone. They can do it from any device, basically, is what that alludes to. Yeah.
So the magic, I think, behind Qualifi is that most interviews are taken over the phone. So they receive a text or an email. They click a link to read basic instructions. It's all branded to the employer. But ultimately, when they're ready, they hit a start button, and our system calls their phone, and they get to hear pre-recorded questions that the recruiter or the recruiting team has recorded for them in their own voice. And so the candidate's able to, have this really seamless experience. They don't have to coordinate or schedule with recruiters, and they still get to hear their voice. It still feels very conversational, and they get to take it over a cell phone, over a landline if they need to. We also have a web-based version for them to respond to as well. So there's a variety of different ways that we make it convenient for the candidates.
Okay. Yeah, we see so much of like digital interviewing. The phone screen aspect, calling the cell phone, that makes it more accessible. Like it's a wider audience that you're able to recruit, because you're not worried about bandwidth or worried about access, but everybody's got a phone in their pocket, or access to a
Exactly.
landline somewhere. Yeah. So what's unique? You've mentioned a few things that sound special about Qualifi, but how do you differentiate? What are the unique attributes to your product?
Yeah, I can
Yeah, I'll
jump
start.
in on
Go for it.
yeah, I can jump in on the product side. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely hitting on it just now that with the phone being such an accessible way to take the interview, we get candidates that are able to complete their interviews that maybe wouldn't be able to if they had to sit down in front of a laptop and maybe have a video going. So I think that's one of the strongest differentiators there, is that accessibility with the phone. And then, kind of paired with that is the the ability to kind of reduce the bias within that process too. So not having the video aspect allows candidates to have a more equitable process to go through, and each candidate is being asked all of the same questions. So we leverage a standard interview process, or a structured interview process, and so those two aspects combined, I think, leads to candidates having kind of a more fair interview process. So I think that's really one of the ways that we stand out.
Yeah. Yeah. And so given all that, who are your ideal customers? You mentioned high volume, but I don't want to make any assumptions of what that means. Or do you focus in on particular areas where they're doing, high volume recruiting?
Yeah, say when we talk about high volume, that means a lot of different things to different people. When I first got started in this world of recruiting, I was recruiting at another tech startup, and we were growing pretty fast, but from the CEO and myself to like 70 people on the team, and that felt like high volume in terms of
Right.
the speed at which we're growing. But when we talk about our clients today, they're doing hundreds, if not thousands, of interviews a month, and typically to kind of boil it down, it's often hourly labor force. We've focused in on a couple of different industries, but we see the bigger picture. So healthcare has been really huge for us. Retail, call center, staffing, these are certain areas that have we've seen a lot of success with. But as we continue to grow, there's a lot of industries where they're hiring in the masses, and the phone interview is a common step in that process. And unfortunately, it hasn't been solved well until humbly until you've come along. So excited about that.
Okay. All right. And let's get into the deal a little bit. So, it sounds like, you're leveraging some pretty cool tech to facilitate this, but it's an interesting time to raise money right now. And you announced it's a $4.5 million seed round. So it's a good size seed round. Congratulations. What was happening in the market or at Qualifi that made it the right time to raise?
Yeah, I think a couple of different things. One, when we talk about the market that we're going after, the industries that we've mentioned, these are industries that tend to be or have been either recession proof or recession resistant. And so I think there was optimism as we were going through around and how we were able to talk about the markets that we were going after, that resonated with the investors that we were able to bring on, and the existing investors that wanted to continue to back us. And to go along with that, like, we've been able to continue seeing growth as a company. So we've been able to bring on new clients. Our clients have stuck around with us, and then we've started to bring on much larger clients as well. Part of our strategy last year, and Keenan was a driver of this, was becoming more enterprise ready. So when we talk about people doing hundreds or thousands of hires per year, we wanted to continue to bolster the platform and make sure that it was set up for success for these larger enterprises. So we've been able to really prove that out. And I think the round was, I guess, a reflection of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, scale is really important. I mean, the higher the volume, the bigger the customers, to your point. So how do you plan to use the funds? Where, what do you have earmarked for this round?
Yeah. So us being a startup company, like some of the typical talk track there on go to market, we've already started to grow the team, especially on the sales and marketing side. We're starting to find success and some repeatability in specific ways that we're going to market. So we want to continue to add fuel to that fire. But we're still figuring things out. We're still learning and wanting to, have the funds to be, to be experimental and figure, try new things and figure things out on that front. But then I think a lot of the excitement is around what we plan to do with product as well. I'll pass it over to Keenan here in a sec, but I guess for the longest, we've built a name up as the phone interview platform, and we're starting to, expand outside of that into some different areas. So that's been, really exciting for us because it's been part of the vision since the beginning. But yeah, Keenan, you want to touch on any of that?
Cool.
Yeah, happy to. So yeah, we certainly got our start, focusing on the phone screening aspect of the interview process, and we definitely will continue to focus on that. That's our core focus and product. But we recently have expanded into the scheduling space, and our scheduling product in terms of how candidates interact with it is very similar. So making sure that continues to feel like the Qualifi experience, making that really a low friction experience. So the plan there is to continue to grow both the core platform as well as the new scheduling offering, and then continuing to look for other areas to innovate. I think scheduling is something that a lot of companies kind of expect when looking at products in our space. I think we're able to compete at that level now, but we want to continue to innovate and do more in the space. So plenty more, I think, ahead of us as well.
Yeah. So is this the scheduling, once the candidates identified post the phone screen to go to the next round, the scheduling there is automated, or is it scheduling, where does that feature fit in the whole process, if you will?
Yeah. So typically, yeah, this will be the kind of next round of that follow-up interview. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's such a pain point still in the market. So I'm sure your customers led you there, and it's smart because you've got the relationship with the candidate on your platform today, and then they're comfortable and moving into that scheduling. So that seems like that's a very logical next step. So that scheduling's out now, right? Am I right about that? I've saw it on the website, so it's available. That exists today.
That's right. Yeah. So I think that officially went live last week.
Okay.
Yeah. So very new.
Very
and
recent.
Yeah, very recent. And we plan to continue to expand on that product. So what went out just last week is the kind of the core version of our scheduling product, but we plan to do quite a bit more there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the candidate experience is still such a hot button, and you've got in the high volume environment, you've got a certain amount of time to get someone into a phone screen, get them scheduled for an interview, or you lose them because it's never just one opportunity that they're looking at, never just one job, or usually it's not, I should say. And that feedback, that knowing that I'm moving forward is we talk about the black hole in recruiting, and that's where just candidate data just goes to die and goes, it just, coming back weeks
Yeah.
later with an interview doesn't cut it in high volume recruiting. So makes a lot of sense. So is that pretty much the roadmap for now, or is there anything on the product side while you're talking, Keenan, that you can share, or even just directionally, beyond scheduling or anything that you're thinking about?
Yeah, so on the scheduling front, kind of starting there, I guess the candidate experience, like making the scheduling as efficient and as easy as possible is really kind of the core focus. But thinking about ways for recruiters to allow candidates to schedule easier. So the invite process works well, it's great, but having something where they basically can just share a link so they can schedule kind of outside of maybe the invite process that we have. So kind of extending the product a bit there. And then outside of scheduling, we definitely want to take advantage of all of the innovation that's happening in the AI space right now.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the intention to have AI rating candidates or making decisions. That's not kind of where we focus. But helping our users be more kind of efficient within the Qualifi product. So taking more of kind of an assistive and kind of user centric focus when it comes to AI, being really cautious as we look at that type of functionality, because as I mentioned earlier, reducing bias is certainly one of the things that we believe is important in the process. So introducing functionality that is counter to that is absolutely not something that we want to do. So we know that there's a lot of excitement and capability, but we want to be cautious as we look at that new functionality.
Yeah, well, that's a good move, especially as you're scaling and getting in front of larger customers and working with larger customers. We have a tendency to jump on, the big trends in the market, and I'm certainly talking about it and I'm looking at it. And one of the pieces of advice I'm giving employers is, you don't need to rush into this, and it's about mitigating bias, and it's about security and things like personally identifiable information. Having some control there, and you just. A few months isn't nobody's going to get first mover advantage right now. It feels like that, but your customers will appreciate that you're being thoughtful about that. So Darrian, back to you on this, with this raise. I'm curious. I always ask about three constituencies, and the first is the customers. Is there, as you've raised this, is there anything that customers will experience moving forward differently because of the raise, or what's the impact for customers? I guess is a better way to ask it.
Yeah, I think hopefully it's just us getting better all around. I think as we've grown and matured, so has like our offering towards our customers, both obviously the things that Keenan's mentioned on the product front. Our customer success and customer service has already gotten a lot better since we've been able to continue to add to the team. We're taking a much more intentional approach, especially right now with everything happening in the market. We want to make sure that we're taking care of them, and then how that translates to us continuing to grow as a business. So I would say, yeah, for sure on the customer front, they're getting upgraded product and upgraded attention and support to everything that they're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you've mentioned on a couple of different areas you're growing the team. So existing employees, it sounds like they're seeing growth, and you're doing some hiring. Most people don't think of Indianapolis as like a tech center, but I know that there actually is a healthy HR tech community there. And I know in the B2B space, ExactTarget was there, right? And ended up being acquired by Salesforce. So there's a lot of talent in your backyard,
Yeah.
To draw from. Is most of your growth in the US right now from a hiring perspective and a market perspective? That's where you're focused, right?
Yeah, to both, I think to both of those questions. So we started off the company being virtual first. Look, 4 co-founders are based here in the Indianapolis area. And so naturally, I would say, I think close to half, if not half, maybe a little bit more of the team is based here in Indy, and then the rest dispersed throughout the country. And then for our go-to-market efforts, we have the capabilities of supporting clients outside the U.S. and with different translation features, things of that nature. But for our mindset, our focus, we're really lasered in on the U.S. right now, in North America, I should say, the U.S. and Canada for the most part. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we've talked about where you're headed with the market. So, improving the product, talking to larger customers, so this round will help lead you there. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you wanted to share about the company, the product, the round that I didn't ask you about?
That's a good question. No, I would say that, we're just super grateful. We've been able to build a really great team. We've won, some awards recently on the employer front, and I think that's a huge testament to, the rest of our team. Obviously, we talked about the co-founders, but we have 21 people now, and they're all, firing on all cylinders and making the real things happen. And so really grateful for them. And then when it comes to the round, the investors that we brought on have been super supportive, some of them since the beginning of our journey. And some new ones that, are already adding a ton of value to what we're trying to do here at Qualifi. So just really appreciative and grateful for, everyone that's been a part of this journey.
That's great. That's great. And where can folks go learn more about Qualifi?
Yeah, it's qualifi.hr. Qualifi is spelled with an I instead of a Y, but it should be pretty easy to find us there. We'd love for you guys to come check us out. There's a virtual tour, so you can actually click around and see for yourself what we're all about.
Great. Well, Keenan, Darrian, thank you for coming on WorkTech and telling your story here. I really enjoyed meeting you and learning more about Qualifi. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for watching, listening, and we'll be back soon. Until next time.